I'm just going to throw this out, just taking a random. Are you with the Star News? You just look like a journalist. So I just took a random shot in the dark. That's Monday. Monday at 6, right? Yeah. Hey, with Mike not being over here, I got a lot of room to spread out. This is actually a good thing. Yeah. About the who? It's on your thing tonight, I thought. You had tabled it to the last meeting, so I think it is under Janet's. Number 10. B10. Yep.
I'm going to call to order the June 7th, 2016 council meeting. Invocation by Councilperson McPherson, please.
Lord, we thank you for this evening. We thank you that you give us the type of government where we can elect people and we can have input in what goes on. Lord, make us people of integrity, chastise us if at any time we become more interested in our self-interest rather than the interests of the city. So, and I ask special protection for the troops that are deployed all over the world, Lord, that seek to protect this freedom for us. In Jesus' name, amen.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Good to see Mr. Jeff Reese out back on that third row. We'd missed him for a while. That's a good sight out there, Jeff. We're going to adopt the agenda. I think we got a couple of changes that we're going to adopt on the agenda. So, Danny, you got anything?
Yeah, I got one. We want to move the executive session to after the E, section E.
After D, Parks and Recreation Leisure Services, we're going to move the executive sessions
Down to the bottom, just before adjourn.
right before adjourn. Any other changes? All those in favor?
I move we adopt the agenda.
Second. All those in favor? Council updates. Move on to,
I got one council update. This is our Councilman Mike Williamson's last council meeting, so we will miss you.
thank you very much. I'm certainly glad that I don't have to read my resignation speech again. That was pretty. No, trust me, that was pretty darn tough on me. It really was. I'm going to move this to our city manager report. Mr. Millern.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem Williamson, for the time being, because once we get to the ordinance, that'll change. All right, so I'm glad that you all had nothing, because I've got some stuff. It normally is under ceremonial, but I've incorporated it all into my stuff instead of changing the agenda all around. So, for the council, if you have not already, it's in your mailbox, a copy of the Villa Rica Renaissance Strategic Vision and Plan. For those in the public, there'll be a copy going on the web. There's also a version at City Hall for inspection. This is the culmination of many, many months of public involvement, headed by Janet Hyde in our Community Development Office. But the important part of this is that Monday at 6 o'clock over at the venue. The venue is next to the Olive Tree. So just over here, come for dinner, get a drink or something, come on over. Will they be serving anything during the meeting? Oh, darn. Open bar, nothing? Okay, well, so go next door, get you some libations, come on over to the meeting. It starts at 6 o'clock, but that's going to be the formal presentation of the proposed master plan. This is the culmination of all of the work that's been done, and then ultimately the council will need to adopt that plan, and then we will work to put it in place. So that is 6 o'clock Monday, and if all goes well, it will be live streamed, but if not, then it will actually hit the internet shortly thereafter because it will be recorded. I want to give a shout out. It's always a proud moment when someone within your ranks moves on to greater things. And I'm speaking specifically of Police Detective Eddie Thompson. Unfortunately, he couldn't be here today, but he has been named Police Chief for the city of Whitesburg, sister city over here in Carroll County. So kudos to you, Chief, and I've told him to reread his employment contract in the small print. It says you're not allowed to poach any employees from us. So congratulations to Police Chief Eddie Thompson. And while I'm on the police department, I might as well give a huge shout out to the chief and all of the department because right before the meeting I handed this nice little letter that we'll put up on the website from the Georgia Association of Chiefs of Police. But little old Villa Rica is one of 3 finalists statewide for what is called the Dr. Curtis McClung Award of Excellence. And we are going head-to-head with the city of Marietta, the Marietta Police Department, and the Sandy Springs Police Department. And that's quite the feather in the hat. Mm-hmm. Now, you may say, well, what did we do that was so great? Well, we do lots of things that are great all the time. But this particular award honors achievements in a lot of different categories, including innovative training, innovative programs, programs that effectively utilize and deploy resources, and the list goes on. But what we did, which they caught their attention, was this annual program called Alive that our police department does, where they go out to the high school and they team up and they get into the classroom with the driver's education classes. And over a 2-day period, they work on everything from distracted driver to texting and everything driver related. And then they get out on the field the next day, and it's almost like an obstacle course. And I have shot video and put this up on our web in the past, but it's everything from learning what it's like to drive as an impaired driver with the drunk goggles on. I'd encourage any council member that wants to come out and have a little fun. We'll set you up in the Avanti building. You can test them yourself. To having students sit there and text while they're trying to drive on a simulator. And it's hilarious to watch everyone watch over your shoulder as they're crashing and smashing and then saying, whoops, I just missed a text. And it's like, no, you just drove over 6 cars. To learning how to maneuver through obstacle courses. So it's a great program that really brings to life the classroom training to hands-on. So kudos to the police department for being one of 3 finalists. The big announcement will be in July in Savannah, and we'll find out whether or not they're behind door number 1, 2, or 3. So with that, congratulations, Chief, and the police department. All right, since we're talking so much police department, I'm going to go ahead and ask the chief to come on up because he does have a special presentation, and then I'll come back to you and hand it over to somebody else.
Alex, you have to go stop or something.
Thank you.
Thank you. Gracias.
Parents taught me that.
Good evening. I appreciate everybody here. I knew y'all knew I was speaking, so that means a lot that y'all came. We do an annual report every year, and we dedicate the annual report to someone each year. In the years past, we've dedicated it to officers that retired or things like that throughout the department. This year, we're dedicating the annual report to our longest-serving employee of the Villa Rica Police Department, Captain Scott Parker. Scott's been with us for 20 years. He had no idea, by the way. He's been with us for 20 years, over 20 years, and he's served in different capacities from patrol officer, traffic sergeant, and has been captain over patrol for several years. I think he started in Tallapoosa, is that correct? And he smartened up and came this way, and we're just thrilled to have him. He's definitely one of my right-hand folks that helps us get things done, and has just been a great asset to our department. So I just want to recognize him tonight and let him know how much we appreciate him. And the annual report, I do have some copies, but that will be available on the site too, our website, Facebook page and all, and I know David will help me get that done, so just so everybody knows, congratulations.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate that.
Look at that old picture of you there.
Oh, skinny.
He looks 12.
Just a teenager.
I want everybody to see it real quick. Can I put this up there?
For the wrinkles.
Doesn't he look 12? And that's his family, his daughters. And they couldn't be here tonight. One of them's in the academy, the Explorer Academy, in Forsyth, and is doing about 250 push-ups each day. And so she's kind of been upset a little bit about him making her go, but now she's having a ball. But thanks again, Scott. I appreciate you.
That's a fine asset to the Villa Rica Police Department. I know Scott for a long time, and we are all lucky to have someone like Scott Parker.
All right, at this time, I'll ask Janet Hyde to come on up to make a special introduction, and we've got some folks that want to make a presentation to the city. Just so you can go up there.
Good evening, Mayor and Council, Mayor Pro Tem, and Council. You may all remember a few months ago that Villa Rica received its Certified Local Government designation. That was from the Historic Preservation Division of the Department of Natural Resources from the state. I want to introduce Allison Asbrock from that department, as well as Paul Jarrell from the Three Rivers Regional Commission, and they're here to present the certificate to the City of Villa Rica.
Good evening. My name is Allison Asbrock. I am the Outreach Program Manager at the Georgia Historic Preservation Division. And on behalf of our Commissioner, Mark Williams, and the Division Director, David Crass, I want to thank you all for having me and Paul here this evening to present the CLG certification as part of the Georgia and National Certified Local Government Program. I want to particularly extend my thanks to the Mayor Pro Tem, the City Council, the Villa Rica Historic Preservation Commission, and the Villa Rica Community Development Department. Thank you for this group effort that's led to this certification, as well as for your ongoing hospitality to me and to all of my colleagues over the past years of our partnership. Villa Rica now joins 94 other local governments in Georgia who continue to promote and protect their individual communities through committed preservation planning. Becoming a certified local government is an accomplishment, and we at the division admire your willingness to go through this process and commit to the goals of maintaining a strong historic preservation commission and promoting preservation education for all of your community members. For For those of you who may not be aware of the CLG program, it's a preservation partnership between local, state, and federal government that focuses on promoting historic preservation at the grassroots level. The National Park Service and the Georgia Historic Preservation Division jointly administer this program. The CLG program allows Villa Rica to keep an active partnership with the Federal Historic Preservation Program and the opportunities that it provides, most notably through the Historic Preservation Fund Grants Program. These grants are the most direct source of support from the National Park Service to our local cities and counties across Georgia. They often include projects such as historic resource surveys, National Register nominations, and educational activities, and other potential projects. So we look forward to working with Villa Rica on their current survey project through the Historic Preservation Grants and many future projects. So now Paul and I would like to present the signed certificate in recognition of Villa Rica's certification. Congratulations, Janet.
Mr. Schwarzkopf up here as well. He's the chairman of the Historic Preservation Commission.
You guys want to do a photo? For anyone else, when they speak, you want to join you? At this time, we'll have Pete Zerbonis, who is our Public Works Director, and we'll also have Vicki Coleman, who is our Director of Parks, Recreation, and Leisure Services, come up to present some service awards.
I'd like to present the certificate of appreciation to Mike Kilgore for celebrating 10 years of service with the city of Villa Rica. And I don't think Mike's here tonight, but we will certainly get this to him and appreciate his service very much. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. So I will certainly say Miss Dorothy Worthen is in the back. She hates coming up, but this is really just, we want to say thank you. We are really recognizing her 10 years of service tonight. If you can stand up. But this is our certificate of appreciation. If you can come forward, we are certainly going to get your photo. She's always uncomfortable whenever she has to come up and be recognized, but she does a tremendous job every day. She's a part of our senior services team, and they head up and run our senior services center every single day. So I want to say thank you and congratulations. So, yes. You'll be on the front page of the paper.
Turn your award around so you can see it.
Smiling. There you go. Thank you. Congratulations. Okay, the next one is near and dear to my heart for a number of reasons, for which I will go into in a minute. But we're going to call Pete back up to present officially to the city what is called the Gold Award. Pete, you want to go ahead and say what it is? I don't want to have to steal that from you.
Okay. The Gold Award
Just
is...
a second.
Okay, all right.
Sorry, I'm playing double duty. So, let me start filling it.
Okay, the Gold Award is an award that's given by the Georgia Association of Water Professionals in recognition of their complete and consistent compliance with their National Pollution Discharge and Elimination System permit for the calendar year of 2015. This is quite an accomplishment. It's not an easy thing to do. They have many challenges throughout the year, and I have a great staff. I'd like to ask Dave to come up, Dave Henson, who is the manager of the wastewater plant. Jerome, one of our operators who could make it tonight. I want to have a word here.
Well, just, we try to achieve this every year, and this is a difficult thing, and it's not all me. There's, all my operators work real hard to make this happen during the year, and, when you think there's numerous tests that have to be done every day for 365 days out of the year, and every one of them have to meet criteria and be in compliance, there's a lot of work and a lot of effort that goes into making that happen, and, I would love to have had more of the operation staff here tonight, but we've been trying to duplicate this award and going to do it again, and it's kind of, everybody's been busy lately, so I'm here and Jerome is here, and we're gonna accept this on behalf of the entire staff and not just for ourselves.
David does smile sometimes, that's the thing. There you go. That's a forced smile. Congratulations. Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Okay, so I said that it was near and dear, and I appreciate the council giving me latitude, because I know my city manager report was mainly all ceremonial tonight, but a city manager is not successful on his or her own accord. It takes an entire team. And every single week, the city of Villa Rica hits many, many marks. If you've ever had the opportunity to go to the villarica.org website and check out the city manager's weekly report, or if you see it linked on Facebook or Twitter or any of the other feeds that we send out, you recognize that every single week, every department of this city strives to hit 110%. Last week was probably the most strenuous, stressful week that I have ever had in the city of Villa Rica or in city management. And let me put that into perspective. Everything that happened as a normal service delivery happened last week without a hitch. Trash got picked up, water got delivered, animals got picked up, you name it, all service delivery, all functions. But there were things that occurred that the public doesn't always see or know or hear that our staff has to address. So I'm going to very quickly highlight why last week was probably the most stressful week I've ever had, but I give kudos to my department heads, to my management team, and every single employee, because they shined last week and they really kept this city afloat. For instance, we had a disaster last week at our wastewater treatment plant, no fault to anyone at the city. We have a state-of-the-art $34 million plant, and a component burst overnight and dumped 255,800 gallons of Class A sludge into the basement of one of our buildings. Let me put that into perspective. That was about 65,797 pounds of solid waste that drained into the basement of one of our buildings. If I was to say well, never mind, I'm just not going to say. But the staff didn't miss a mark. They kept that plant operational. They kept the city operational. They have been working 24/7 for you, the residents, to remain in compliance and to keep this city properly functioning while also cleaning up one of the worst messes in the city's history at one location. And they did so professionally and as a team. And when I say they've been working 24/7, it's just that. And for that, I'm very proud. But it's not just that department. For instance, last week we experienced a gas leak right outside this building. We had to, as a precaution, evacuate the courtroom, and we were in the middle of court. But our police department, our police chief stood up, and as a team collectively came together, jumped into action, secured the venue thanks to the management team over there, and was able to relocate and recreate the entire court functions over at another facility just up the street. And when you're dealing with prisoners and things of that nature and the security of the facility, that's no easy feat, but that's leadership. And that's the staff that you have working for you. And I could mention the fact that among all that, we have what appears to be a total loss on one of our police cars that was T-boned, no fault to the officer. And the officer miraculously came out with just some soreness and was not hurt, thank goodness. But of course now we're down a car, and you have to manage through all of that chaos while you're still protecting the city at the middle of the night. And I was probably the most unpopular city manager when I had to stand up in the middle of one of the most popular concerts in the city's history and tell everyone that I had to cancel the show and you need to go home fast. My wife, who got up, in fact, our city attorney took a cue as to why my wife was getting up and scurrying off the field so fast, because I told her exactly what I was about to have to do. And she's back there praying that it was actually going to rain because her heart went out for me. But our staff pulled together. Everyone pulled together to get everybody out that concert, get them out of the barricades, get them in their cars, get them into the restaurants, get them anywhere they could, because that thunderstorm and lightning came through with 45-mile-an-hour winds. We had been tracking the weather, but again, they made me proud because they took what otherwise could be chaos, or as I was saying, Mudfest 2016, and was able to turn it around. We are going to reschedule that concert, but again, kudos to the staff, and public safety came first. Of course, I could also mention that amid all that, the departments were onboarding 6 new employees. And oh yeah, did I forget to remind you that we also had a council resignation that week, and special called meetings, and having to deal with press inquiries and public inquiries and all that. But the staff does their job and goes over and above and beyond. So I appreciate this opportunity. They gave me a little latitude to go a little longer than I should have today. But I just want to say that staff that we have here that you all pay for works hard. They work tirelessly. I am extremely proud of them. Doesn't mean that we're perfect, but they really pulled it off for you, the citizens of Villa Rica. And for that, I'm thankful and grateful. So that concludes my report.
I experienced that firsthand on that rain, and I happened to be one of those to get a little wet. But I would be remiss in not saying what a great job that staff did. I mean, there were gates that started opening that I went, how did that gate open? But I mean, it was just like almost as hard as that rain came and as quick as that rain came, those people were off that field. So I know exactly what David's talking about. Before we go to the next item on our agenda, if you all will excuse me, and it's not on you all's agenda, before we go to our public comment, we'll take 1 second. We need to go back and approve the May the 3rd, 2016 minutes. It's not on the agenda.
It's not on the agenda. Did everybody get a copy but me? I haven't seen the minutes. Have y'all read the minutes?
I have.
I can't think of any minutes.
I have behind on my emails. I did not get a chance to review the minutes.
We could always delay that.
Yeah, there's no reason it has to be approved today.
All right.
Any minutes I didn't read.
We'll table the,
Because usually you
approval.
send
It's
us
not even on
message
the
and you ask for
agenda
comment
anyway.
back.
we'll go to the next item on our agenda, our public comment. If you will, if you come to the front and state your name and address for the record, and let's hear your comment.
John Hannaback, 3106 Golfers Way, Villa Rica. I just want to take a few minutes to thank Mike Williamson for his dedicated service to Ward 4 as councilman, to the city, to the community for the work that he's done. I've known Mike for a long time. We've worked together in the Mirror Lake Homeowners Association. That's how we first started. We served together on the Planning and Zoning Commission, and Mike has been a stalwart to this community. I've been through several Ward 4 council people while I've been here. I don't think anyone has done any more for our community, for the city, than Mike Williamson. He has built bridges where other people have had moats, and he's made numerous contacts with significant officials in other communities that have helped Villa Rica tremendously. Mike, thank you for your service. Appreciate it. Congratulations on your next move, whatever it may be. But appreciate it. Thank you very much, Mike Williamson.
John, thank you so much.
Dennis Brown, 2717 Mariner Way, also of Mirror Lake, and I'm just going to piggyback on what John said, so I'll eliminate the first 10 pages of my comments.
That's good.
Thank you.
Thanks,
I'm
Dennis.
reading, though. I'm reading, I'm not extemporating. But I do want to add something to that, and let me do it and read it from my prepared comments so that I make sure I don't miss a beat. So on behalf of those of us in Mirror Lake and all Villa Ricans who have shared and benefited from Mike's efforts, I'd like to take this public opportunity to thank him. His mark has been left in many ways. Not the least is the improved working relationship we now have with the Douglas County Commission and Department of Transportation. And I know that with Mr. Milliron's continued help in that area, such improved relationships will reap huge benefits in terms of infrastructure and the development of our new passive park planned near the corner of Tyson and Connors Road. And this is what I really wanted to add. I understand the position that Mr. Mecklin has forwarded as city attorney, which outlines that there's no means by which a replacement for our Ward 4 councilman may be arranged until next November, a good 5 minutes off, is of concern to some. 3 or 4 years ago, I would have been concerned about the lack of a voice on the council representing our Ward 4 interests during this period. But having watched the council operate over these last couple of years, and with the joining of the city staff of Mr. Milliron as city manager slightly over a year ago, frankly, these fears have been mitigated. Especially, though, I am also comforted by the paragraph in Mr. Mecklin's memo of June 1st directed to our city council that was titled Operation of City with Vacancies in the Office of Mayor and Council. The council should be especially sensitive to making any controversial decisions during the time when the council is operating at less than full capacity. If any ward is unrepresented due to a vacancy, special efforts should be made to solicit input from members of that ward prior to taking any action. Finally, and in that spirit, I'd like to suggest that in the case such input is desired, in addition to Mr. Williamson, who perhaps while physically removed from our community, no doubt will still always be there for us with his interest and his advice and his background savvy. The best source of input is Mr. John Hannebeck, who just spoke. Sitting out here among us this evening, as he always is, no one knows our Ward 4 area any better, and probably no one from the Ward 4 or the entire city, for that matter, has been more actively involved and knows more about our city's matters and activity any better. But again, the major reason that I wanted to speak before you is simply to say, as John did, Mike, thank you, thank you, thank you. Rest assured, you and Tina may be basking on the shores of the Florida Gulf and attending to her mother, far removed from Villa Rica, but you will never be forgotten by most of us.
Thank you much.
Make you cry again, Mike.
Any other public comments? We'll move on to the B part of our community development, Janet Hyde. And Janet, before we go to this right here, I'd like to reach out. You all that have not seen the strategic planning and may not have the opportunity Monday night to go to the Olive Tree to see that, go by City Hall, go to the website, go anywhere in the world. If you want just some awesome reading of, and I always believe that you have to develop a plan and you have to work your plan. I just don't think that things happen. And you know, there's a lot of luck involved, but there's a lot of hard work that has gone beyond this. And Janet, I've seen your efforts on some of these things, and they're just, the city is extremely fortunate to have someone in your position. So before we go to the community development, going to finance with Sarah Hefty. Sarah, I'm so sorry.
Good evening. This is the financial update through April, and you can see up there that that's 33% of the year completed, so that should help you as you try to compare to the percentages you'll see down below. If you want to start at the top in the selected statistics box, you can see as of the end of April, our total cash was a little over $9 million. Our outstanding debt, which is in reference to the wastewater plant that Mr. Milliron spoke about, is $33 million. And total unrestricted fund balance, which is our reserve, we have over $8 million, with the majority of that belonging to the general fund. In the next box, I've highlighted the major revenue sources for the city. And you can see the first column is the budget for 2016 year-to-date, which is January through April, so 33% of the year. And then that compares the percentage of the budget collected so far, and then how we are standing next to 2015 at this point. You can see almost all of these major revenue sources are higher than last year at this point, except for fines and forfeitures, which is slightly less than last year. But if you look in the percentage budget column, they still are at 33%, which is where we budgeted them to be at this point. So overall, looking good on our revenue side. If you look down at the next box, this is our budget status. Again, you see the total budget for the year, revenue and expense for each of our major funds, general fund, water and sewer fund, and solid waste. You see the year-to-date column, which is, again, January through April. Percentage of budget, which we want to see around 33%, and then compared to the prior year. So if you look at the general fund, which is the majority of our activity, you can see that we are at 3% higher in revenue and 3% higher in expense. But if you look at the percentage budget, we are we are less than 33%, which is good. And revenue it looks like we only have 16% collected, but like the property tax won't be collected till later in the year. So it just is a little skewed earlier in the year. But when you look above, we're doing fine. Water and sewer fund are hanging around that 33% of the budget so far in revenue and expense, and both are higher than last year. The expense is 30% higher than last year, but we've been doing a lot of repairs and improvements for the water side. So that's to be expected. And in the solid waste side, the Revenue is 10% higher than last year, and our expense is lower than last year. So overall, looking pretty good. If you look at the chart to the right, the yellow is 2016, and the green line is 2015. So you can see in all three, we're slightly higher than last year, and the brown line was from 2014. So, any questions?
Thank you, Sarah. Next we'll have, and I'm sorry for that, Sarah. Next we'll have Janet.
Thank you for those kind words. I couldn't do it without my staff, though. First of all, tonight I have for you an alcohol license approval, ABL-06-16, alcohol license for Swifty Save. This is a new retail package malt beverage and wine license in the name of the owner of this business, Don Carl. Mr. Carl's met all the requirements of the ordinance and has passed the background check, and Mr. Carl is present tonight.
Council have any questions? Mr. Carl, you want to come up? Council have any questions for Mr. Carl?
You can give him the speech, Jay. Yes,
I'm just wondering if you all have any questions at all for him.
The infamous speech.
I did.
All those in favor of,
I make a motion, we approve the
here, second?
license.
Second.
All those in favor? All those opposed? Mr. Carl, you understand that the drinking age, you understand what the drinking age is, and that you need to train all your employees on this age. And you also understand that the city does conduct random sting operations to see if we find anyone not obeying the laws and the penalties that go with it.
I understand.
You're supposed to tell him that before we vote.
Okay? Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
He might say no.
No. We've never had anybody to say no. I don't
That'll be a first.
I don't know what we do then.
The next item that I have for you is ORD-06-16-UDC. This is a correction of an ordinance that was adopted last month with respect to square footage. You all had asked at the work session to see a text copy of this correction, so you should have that in your packet. It was a change from the building lot size to the actual building size.
And we stated to grandfathered was grandfathered if they were above the 1,000 now. It stayed the same, is that correct?
Right, this is only with new building
Okay.
construction.
I'll move to adopt the ordinance.
Here a second.
Second.
All those in favor? All those opposed?
This is actually amending the UDC, is it not?
It is.
Yeah, we probably, out of abundance of caution, ought to call for any public comment before that is finally adopted.
All right, before we'll
backtrack.
We're going to backtrack, back to ordinance 6-16 on the Unified Development Code correction of UDC ordinance adopted last month with respect. They're going from a minimum building size from 1,200 square feet to 1,000 square feet, and this encourages the development of walking and livable downtown options. Do we have anybody that wants to come and speak in favor or anybody that wants to speak against? With that being said, we'll revert back to have a motion to approve.
Okay, motion to approve.
Second.
All those in favor? All those opposed?
The next item that I have for you is ORD-07-16-UDC. This is a change to our UDC concerning conditional use permits for cell towers. Staff is proposing to add another application process type, which will allow for a 10-day time period for those applications to be heard from the time they are received until they're approved. This is to make sure that we abide by the federal guidelines, which allow for a 15-day approval period, and don't actually fall into that automatic approval.
Do we need a hearing on this one, David?
You do.
Yes.
For all those that are interested, Janet, did you get the fee changed on that to raise it to, I think we were raising it to that cost of $500?
The staff is recommending the fee for this conditional use to be raised to $500. That's to offset the cost of the special call meeting that would be required.
And that's the exact reason that we went back in and asked for a higher permit fee on this, because with the 10-day minimum that we have, we would have to have a special call meeting, and those special call meetings cost the city a small amount of money, and it certainly wasn't fair to pass that on to the taxpayers without that carrier coming back in and bearing that expense. So we raised it from, what, 300 to 500, and 500 was the maximum that we could raise it, by the way. So, David, do we need to have a...
Yeah.
Yes, you do need to have a public hearing on this change.
With this being said, is there anybody that wants to come and speak for or in opposition against this ordinance? With that being said, do I have a motion to approve?
Move to approve.
Do I have a second? All those in favor? All those opposed?
The next item that I have is item number 10 in my section. It's consideration of a land parcel donation from MMB Construction LLC on behalf of Mark Vaughn, parcel number V070030025 at the end of Pine Drive. This was on your agenda last month, and you all asked staff to notify the residents that would be affected by this parcel donation. And we did hand deliver letters to each one of the landowners who have land that touches Pine Drive. This donation request is for this Pine Drive to be opened up onto Candler. So that was the reason for the notification of the landowners.
And we have some
did not
people
receive
here.
any response from any of those.
And we have some
entities.
people here that live on that road. Do we want to hear from them?
Any negative, no negative
We
feedback?
have not heard any comment one way or the other from the
Either way.
landowners, but there may be somebody here that wants to speak.
Is there anybody out there in the audience that does want to come in and,
There's at least two that live on that road.
that do want to come? Please come forward.
He doesn't want to speak. Janet, did we contact the one where the road ends? Did we get any feedback from them? The
We
ones whose
contacted-
property we would have to go through.
We contacted every landowner whose property touched Pine Drive.
And you didn't have any rebuttals or whatsoever.
Yeah, we got some.
I want to hear from someone that wants to speak for it or against it.
He's going to speak.
Good evening, people. My name is Michael Rutledge. That section of area of land was part of my mother's home, and that does stop at her driveway, which is the area you're talking about. Now, I live myself in Bremen, but I'm going to speak for that part. At this time, we're in the process, more or less after my mother's passed away, to maybe, after we get our things together, maybe to have the place for sale. But we have no plans to have a street where her driveway is. She's got a gate. I poured her a big section of concrete for a turnaround. We have no reason, or know of no reason why there should be a street in that area. There's a creek there. There's a lot of good private yard. We have not been contacted in a way that we would need to have a street. We really like the way that it is now, and we'd like to keep it that way.
It's a private drive right now as we
Right.
as we know it, and you all take care of it, and
That's
If it
right.
needs scraping, you scrape it, and
That's right. I have took care of it now. Well, I know they've lived there probably more than 30 years, but I know for 30 years, and I've always maintained that road for my mother, and it's just her private drive is all that I know of ever being.
how many houses are on this street? Do you,
There's houses, their driveway is on the other side of this. It's not a street, it's just a driveway. It just goes straight from 78 Highway to her house.
It services that, what used to be Rusty Dean's building, I guess it still is, I don't know.
It is.
Services that, and then no other houses connect to it all the way up to hit his house, his backyard.
That's right, and all around is the cemetery, so
Yeah, the other houses in between there, dump out on the cemetery road.
I've driven it, and it's called Pine Drive. If it's not a street, why is it called Pine Drive?
All right.
It was a street.
This is an issue that was raised. You have some locations in the city that have signs that are not actually city streets. So staff very recently has been talking about the fact that we should really go ahead and adopt the color-coded, if there's streets there for 911, you know, if you call and say, you know, I'm on 911, 123 Pine Street or what have you, they know where to find you. But you have green signs, you have blue signs, and you have orange signs, and they all mean different things. It could be a city street, a county street, or a private street. You can still have a street or a driveway and still have a sign on it, but it comes down to the maintenance. So although you see that sign there, very much like at one point you had Leather Street with a sign on there, okay? What we have to do as a city is to go ahead and adopt the uniform, process of making sure that if it is truly a city street, that we are color coding the signs accordingly so that you can look at them and very quickly say, that's not city maintenance, it's not county maintenance, it's private. In this case, if I'm not mistaken, Janet or Vicky, that's usually orange, if it's private?
oh, I thought blue was
Orange is
private.
county? Yeah. So it's, there's, pardon me? Sometimes it's blue. I know, like I have a private drive and mine's blue, but mine's in a different county. So that, I hope that answers the question, is that historically, we've all just put up green signs, and this is, we're learning what streets are streets and not our streets, even though it'll say it is.
David,
What's
has this,
the history on adoption of this, abandonment of it, readoption of it? What's the history?
Janet can speak to the history, but when you all adopted your most recent list of streets, that was the most exhaustive audit that we could do to say, and that gives us a foundation. Of course, we've since now understood that back in 1985 or 86, the city adopted 101 as a city street, all the way down to Main Street. So we're going to have to come back and add that to the list as well. Janet, do you have the history on this particular one? Were you able to research that?
There was an abandonment by the city several years ago, and I don't have the dates with me, but I do know that the city did vote to abandon that street.
Janet, doesn't that mean the same thing that they had like at Nally Road? You remember Nally Road used to be, and David, you remember this situation where Nally Road, for whatever reason, was listed as a city street, and we had gotten LNIG funds from it, and then all of a sudden we came back in and nobody was utilizing that street, and we abandoned it. Is that the same thing that's happened at Pine Drive right now?
Not exactly. The city did vote to abandon Pine Drive several years ago, but people were still using it as a private drive.
So who owns that part of the street that goes to the business on the right when you turn into it?
I'm sorry, what's the question?
That part of that street goes by the business,
Right.
Rusty Dean's business.
Right.
Who owns that part of it?
That is owned by the business that's there now, My Financial Services.
Who owns the rest of from there on in to his backyard? Who owns the rest of that?
I believe that's the same property owner.
Do the property owners own
The
it?
MMV Construction. Yeah.
Please, please.
Please do.
Go
Wait,
go
wait
to
till
the
you
go to the
get up to the
microphone and
mic.
state your name, please.
It helps for everybody else if you're at the mic. Thank you.
Just not used to being so formal. My name is Mark Vaughn. I'm from Bremen, Georgia. I've worked in the water and wastewater industry for 27 years, so kudos to the guys that won the gold award. I've applied for that many times, and we won Platinum 7 this year. But on my days off, I bought land, I've built apartments, built houses, and remodeled. And I ended up owning this one piece of property that's the end of Pine Street. And when you go to sell your mom's property, what you're going to find out is where the gate is and where you pour the concrete is on a quarter-acre property that I own. So when you have the survey done, you'll see that. Now, when I bought the land, I had Greg Dewberry do the survey. He has a bachelor's, a master's in civil engineering from Georgia Tech. He's the Harrison County surveyor. So I don't have any reason to doubt his survey. And I don't know how long it's been since your mom's property has been surveyed, but whoever buys it will have a survey done, most likely, and they'll see where that gate is and where the concrete's poured is part of this property. When I bought it, had Greg do the survey and realized that, I knew that an elder lady lived there. I didn't want to say anything about it. So I've been paying taxes on that property for 11 years. What I would like to do is donate that property to the city because Pine Street dead ends into this property, and the property just stops it from connecting to Candler. If that was connected, it's going to improve traffic flow. Traffic flow is going to improve commerce. Commerce is going to improve revenues to the city. And, you know, Alan has his business there. My wife has a law firm on the other side of the street there, even though we access from Westview. And it would just open up that area so much more to have that road connected there. So that's why we want to donate it to the city.
You're saying that the road, I'm sorry, you're saying that the road runs into the property you bought?
Yes,
So,
part of the property that I bought. I have 4 acres there. This is a quarter-acre parcel. So if the road was connected using the quarter acre that I'd like to donate, there's still, that would only use about 1/3 of the property because it's not much to connect it. And the other part, as Janet suggested, would be a good spot for a little park, a little city park.
but can we continue the road on through without affecting his property?
Yes, it wouldn't touch his property. From what I remember about where the survey pins were located, because it was concrete, what Greg did was he just drew orange, he painted orange circles on there. He didn't set a pin in. So, but their property, where he poured the concrete and where the gate is on this 0.25 acre piece of property. And you might could look at the city maps and see that, or just have a surveyor go out there and, you know, verify that.
So Janet, you're actually asking for two things. You're actually asking for Mark and them to abandon this 1/4 acre and then us adopt this particular street as a city street again, correct?
Well, it was their request to, for the city to take this property, and then for the city to improve that road and to make it a city street.
I believe it was contingent.
It was
Okay.
contingent
In other
on the
words, we
city.
will donate this to the city if
The
you
city-
will adopt that street and make it a thorough street and take, that would maybe take some of the cars where they're going up Candler right along the cemetery there where it's very narrow and those cars are trying to pass one another.
I mean, it certainly makes sense, but I know we ran into this last week about a city street that we didn't know that was a city street, but it was. And then by finding this out, we also found out that this particular street, it didn't have right-of-way. Does this meet all the requirements of a city street, David? Does it have right-of-way?
It wouldn't yet.
Right now, to your current code, no. And just just because it's your last meeting. And no, sir, it does not meet GDOT standards.
I was going to ask that, but
Because we were real concerned about that.
It may not meet the GDOT standards, but it did belong to the city.
Mark, that's
First Streets don't.
that's inside.
Most of us, ours don't. meet.
My concern is because this came up, and Mr. Mecklen's aware of what I'm talking about, a street that we thought wasn't a city street, and we found out that it was a city street, and then we start talking to the city and street supervisor, and we find out that this particular street didn't even have right-of-way. So, I mean, again, some of the things that we've done have been done, but if we can find out about them and get them corrected before we go and do them, we're light years ahead, and that's the only reason that I asked that, David. Certainly not what the road is like. It makes sense. It makes a lot of sense to me, but again, I just want to be sure, David, that it's the right thing to do
I think we
or
have
not do.
some more comments.
Yeah, if I could just.
Go ahead, Alan.
My name's Alan Martinez, and I actually own the building at the end of the street there on Bankhead. What was Rusty Dean's is not anymore. I love Rusty, but he's down the road a little bit. We moved in about 4 years ago. And when I come to work every day, I come down on the back, turn around on Candler, and then come down the road on the cemetery, which is a very narrow way, and it's a narrow pass. We would like, the city is only, the road is a small part of our property necessarily, but it would be, again, very much more traffic friendly in flowing people away from the cemetery road as opposed to, and coming down. And we wouldn't mind them coming by the building, but, it's a difficult in and out at times, so it would be much easier if it was opened up.
Thank you.
I want to hear again from, I think there was another person that wanted to speak. I'm not sure if it's in opposition or for, it doesn't matter, but we certainly want to hear you.
Okay, we've got phone up here.
Good evening. Thank you very much for letting me speak for a minute. When my mother-in-law passed away, she left us this and said, "You're going to need this if you ever try to sell the house." And this shows where this is where she had the land deeded to her where her house is, and that's part of where her driveway and all is. You can look it up. It's in Carroll County. It's in the books. Not only that, my question is, right there where she lived, there is a creek that runs right there beside the property. And where they're trying to go through to Candler Road, there is also a creek. It's the same creek. Now, how are they going to get a road through there? I thought we were trying to protect our wetlands now. Now, what are they going to do with this creek? Are they going to take it away? Her sewer sits right there where her driveway is. The turnaround that he talks about that's on his lot. But this is what she left us, showing that she owned that lot. So that's my question. I don't know a lot about all of this. I just know that for them to make a road right now, we're in the process of trying to sell her property, sell her home. What is that? What is that going to help us? And they say Chandler Street, whatever, is so small that you can't get through it. Well, I've been in and out of that Pine Drive many, many times. It's just as hard to get out up there at the cemetery as it is that drive. So I don't think that it would improve anything or help anything to do. And y'all can look up this plat. I don't know, but I just know that she left this for us to help us understand, because she's been through this before in 2001. And I just appreciate it if y'all would take the time to maybe try to find out where everything is.
I think
and
we're
where
gonna have
it
to
stands.
establish some boundary lines before we can even go forward.
Yeah, we can't until.
We don't have a
staff
clue who
looks
owns
at it a little
what.
Closer.
Thank y'all.
If it.
Mayor Pro Tem?
The feasibility of going through.
It's
David,
on the screen.
I'm sorry.
Basically from a staff side, if council was interested in pursuing this further, let me step back. So the directive to staff was to make sure that we made notification to contact residents, which of course we've done. You've heard some feedback. At this point, if council is leaning towards an inclination that it might want to reopen this, then the staff recommendation would be staff needs to get with our city attorney, do some deed research. We need to look at some plats, and we need to, at that point, just determine whether or not we could even open it up and reopen it up as a street. I'm certainly looking at what I'm seeing here, and I'm seeing boundary lines and things of that nature, and I've heard, members of the public say, they've got, documents and things of that. And all of that comes up whenever you look at acquisition of real estate. We haven't gone that far because, again, we haven't been directed to, but if you all are so inclined to look towards potentially opening it, then the city needs to spend some money here and get our city attorney engaged in making sure that we could legally even do this.
Well, you
And
know-
what the boundaries are.
This has actually been bounced around for a couple of months, and this is the first time that we've actually heard any opposition for it at all. So again, thank you for coming, Mark. I'm quite certain that we'll get it straightened. But do I hear a motion on what you want to do from the council?
Hold on a second. Mr. Martinez, will you come back up here, please?
Unless we establish where the boundaries are, we can't move forward, period.
We shouldn't even talk about putting a road through if it's not feasible, so we have to look at these other things.
You have a plat for the property you bought from whether Rusty or whoever.
I do.
Does your property line go all the way up to Mr. Vaughn's property?
It does.
So that means that the road outlet is actually on private property.
That is correct.
I'm assuming the road actually is on each individual house all the way down the street of private property.
I have not seen the plats of the other property owners. I know that mine goes up to it.
Exactly. We went through this, if Ms. Martin, if you remember, a few years ago, more than Danny, you were here too, I think, unless you were off at that time. We went through this same process, and that's where I understand, I think Mr. Mecklin remembers that as well, that the question at that time was, where did the property line stop of the existing houses? Did this road actually belong to each individual house, or was it a part of a road from the city owned? But I understand that the city abandoned it and it went back to the property owners. So,
Well, I know I don't have I don't have necessarily a right of way in my deed. So.
Right. It's a private property owned
That's right.
for you, so.
So if I wanted to shut the road off, I wouldn't, but we certainly could.
But the idea is that, I'm
wanna
agreeing
open
with
it up
what
and
these
donate it
guys
all.
are saying, Mr. Mecklin needs to be involved with looking at the property lines for these individual houses.
Yeah, there's another factor in this also. I think that there is a city sewer easement that runs right down the middle of this road. So we do have the city has an interest in the property, even if it's not a public road, and that we have a sewer line running right through the middle of it.
I think before we can proceed, if we even consider continuing this road on over to Chandler, we got to establish where the property boundary lines are. Do we really have enough room to put a road through there?
And can we put a road through based on whatever's on that property?
Yeah, based on the creeks and whatever.
I'm gonna make a motion to table this until we do get further clarification from Mr. Mecklin. All those in favor?
That's all you take.
copy of a deed that was assigned to 3 owners of property there when that, many years ago.
State your name, please, sir.
Beg your pardon?
State your name.
I'm Ed Tanner. I'm one of the residents of it.
Okay, sir.
Next to the property that's
Yes, sir.
being questioned now. This is a deed for that street to 3 people. David Westmont, myself, and Michael Harper, who built the house in question. This deed is for that street. And it says it'll be, the said property is to be used solely and exclusively as a roadway by the grantees, their heirs, and assigns. Title to said property will immediately revert to the grantor in the event said property is ever used primarily for any purpose other than a roadway. Now, this is 40-foot right-of-way that starts at the highway and goes all the way through. It goes through to the lot that's in question by Mr. Bond that he owns there at the end. So what we have is a deed in 3 names, the deed to that property. And here's a copy of it, my copy here, and I'll be happy to give this to Mr. Macklin, let him make a copy of it too.
Yeah, he's going to do the research and find out if it's a possibility, so he will need a copy of that.
This has been tabled, so there really isn't there's not any use for any more discussions. We've got at least another 30 days to hear opposition or hear even favoritism for this. So it has been tabled, so I apologize for that, but I certainly wanted to extend you. I hear you, and that's exactly why I allowed that, because it's going to be tabled for a minimum of 30 days. David, I'm sorry.
From the staff perspective, because I want to chime in, because in the deed, again, that's why I want deed research, because you can have a road, but it doesn't mean that it has to be a city street. So the question really is staff is going to have to research this, but obviously I have a requester here. So does the city bear the whole cost of all this research, or should not the requester, quite frankly, bear some of the cost or all the cost of the deed research, because they're coming and asking the governing body, to open it up as a city street, when in fact it's really a private property issue of a road. And then if it is a road, then if you take it as a city street, that means then you're improving it and things there. So there's some implications here, if you will. But as soon as I assign the city attorney to go research this, his clock's running.
Sometimes things that appear free may not be free,
So the requester, I'd like to know what the requester's willing to do to help us find out what the truth is.
Well,
we need to find out.
Let's open it back up.
Okay.
You gotta bring back the mic, because it's recorded.
Absolutely.
Sorry, and I apologize. I know I keep pointing to the mic,
Make a
but
motion to
that's
open
because
it,
this is
Danny.
recorded and there's a camera over there.
I make a motion
So
to
for
reopen.
those that are at home and for the public record, that's why we keep pointing to there, is that picks up the sound, that picks up the video, so I apologize.
Mark, just a second, Danny.
I'm going to make a motion where we reopen it long enough to hear from him, because I'd like to know how much he's willing to pay.
Second.
For
All those in favor? All those opposed? Okay, Mark, I'm sorry.
Okay, first of all, I'd like to point out that I gave quite a bit of money for the property to start with. And if you consider businesses that operate in the city of Villa Rica and the total economic impact that they bring with them. In other words, when I bought that property and remodeled the Powell House, I had almost $800,000 investment in that. And so, if you consider the total economic impact as they define it business, you multiply that times 7, that's how much we benefited the city of Villa Rica that year. My wife continues to operate there, every week for 11 years now. I just felt like giving the property to you was all I wanted to do. I felt like that was enough, that was, a good step forward on our part. that
You
I
know
knew
we're-
that if the road was opened up, it would increase the revenues for the city. More businesses probably could come in there. The value of their house would probably be worth more on the market, especially if it was end up being zone commercial. Probably could get several times for it. And so really, I just want to donate the property
You know, but
and not get into, every time somebody wants to do this or do that, that could rack up a lot of money. We don't know really where the end point,
we
is
have a
for
problem, though. We're spending taxpayers' money to research
Mhm.
whether or not we can open the street, and if the answer comes back no, we just wasted a lot of taxpayer money.
That's right. I mean, I know it's a gamble, but if it did work out, it would be a benefit to the taxpayers.
did
There's
work
room for a
out.
Park there, and it would, people like Alan wouldn't be having to drive all the way around down the cemetery road. It would take some traffic off of that if folks could cut through there.
How
So
much
there's-
how much are you willing to pay for this gamble? If you want that road opened up and it's gonna benefit you,
If it does benefit me and everyone else, I would say how much are y'all willing to give me as a donation of the property to start with? So I need to know that, to be able to make a decision on this other end of it. So, because that's gonna be a tax write-off for me. So the city doesn't have to pay anything for the land I give to them, but I'd like to know what sort of tax write-off that I would have.
Well, David, that would actually, that would be left up to us, the city, if we wanted to do a swap out as far as tax relief of some sort for this property. But again, I certainly understand David, because the taxpayers are the ones that have to come back in and to pay for it. And it's not like it's going to be $30 or $40 to go back in and to research all this, because it sounds to me like that there's documents that go back several years that David's going to have to research on it.
Would it be possible to get an estimate of the cost to start with?
I was going to say,
And
can
then
we
kinda
get
go from that
can
point?
we get some numbers to work with, and then we can,
I'll throw out a number.
Vendor.
I would be surprised if it's going to be over $1,000 for title research. But I've got an attorney over there, he
knows better.
needs to chime in if things wrong.
Do you do the title
As-
research in-house? Would the city do
yeah, we
that?
have a city attorney.
Our city attorney does.
I think it's hard to predict exactly what it's gonna, the title search would be easily less than $1,000. And this issue has come up before. I mean, there is some history on this road with the city. I mean, we've got some, we've looked into this before, back when we abandoned the road. There've been issues before in dealing with the DOT. I think you tried to get some,
There's some deterioration there.
some permits to put in a turn lane down there that, I don't know what happened. That was several years ago also. So we're not starting completely from scratch on this. But, everybody has got their deeds in hand. We need to go back and try and put those deeds in order to find out what has transpired over the passage of time, because although the deeds may be very clear about what happened at that one point in time, in order to know what the true status of the property is, we need to take it from all the way back in 1969 when Mr. Tanner had his deed up until the present. Title of research would be less than $1,000
What do you think it's gonna cost us to decide?
to decide.
Yeah, how much it's gonna be through you, because you're gonna be doing the research.
Well, I don't get to vote, so you're going to have to make the decision.
We'll make
But
the decision,
I will give you an opinion as to whether or not I believe it is a city street, not a city street, whether or not it meets the requirements so that you could accept it as a city street if you so choose to do so.
The question is, can we continue the street on through with the property he's donating?
Right, and I can tell you that, not here tonight, but eventually I can tell you.
Okay.
I'll pay for the title research up to $1,000.
and how do we work with staff to find out what the situation is on that land as far as if we were to run the road through? What's in the way? Are there creeks and things we have to worry about?
And over the next month.
I know that's
just-
not David's job to do
Yeah, you're
that
obviously
sort of work.
committing a grit to it, and the reason I'm mindful of it is it comes out of your contingency as a council. So I'm always mindful when we're spending your money, which is really tax dollar money. But we'll work with obviously our city attorney and obviously our staff on that issue as we research and delve into what is and is not. and we'll take our staff out there and certainly look at it. You had a question earlier on that if the city were, folks think that they can just donate things to the city. You actually have to take action to accept the gift, if you will. So if it gets to the point that you want to take acceptance of the gift of the property, at that time you can with the help of your city attorney, your staff, put a valuation on it, and then actually issue a tax letter so that you see what the actual value of that property is.
Just where all parties know too, when this is back in Mr. Mecklen's hands, this council has always taken his opinion and his direction very strongly. So if Mr. Mecklen comes back in and says this can be or is a city street or will be or provides all the requirements of a city street, just to let you know that we're going back and at least doing our part and getting the legalities of this out of the way, and Mr. Mecklen will, I can assure you, it will be researched thoroughly by Mr. Mecklen. So if that's all, you want to make another motion to table it again, Danny?
Yeah, because we can't do anything. We can't accept
Can't do anything.
I'd like to say one last thing
Sure.
about the stormwater ditch. I don't believe it's a creek there. I'm not familiar with the Cambler side of it, but on the Pine Street, having owned the property for 10 years, having walked down there, I have a degree in biology from West Georgia, an MBA from Kennesaw, worked in the water and wastewater industry for, like I said, 27 years. I believe it's a stormwater ditch and not a creek. And the reason I say that is because when I walked across to the neighbor's property across the road where there's a pond, there's no discharge on that pond. In other words, it's just a dam, and there's no overflow pipe, not a primary, secondary, tertiary. And so the stormwater just ends there and then evaporates. So that'd be something you'll find out when you do the research.
Okay,
but-
you understand we have to do our due diligence and make sure that, in fact, we can put a road through there before we can move forward on this.
Mark, it'll
They'll find that?
it'll hasten quickly.
Okay, thank you.
So it's tabled to July meeting.
I hear a motion to table it again.
Move.
Second.
All those in favor? Moving on to, Janet, that's it for you?
I
Is
have
that-
one last thing.
I'm sorry.
I have one last item.
Okay, go ahead.
Item
I'm
number
sorry.
12, a grant agreement between the Department of Natural Resources and the City of Villa Rica for a $4,000 grant with a provision for a 40% match for GIS mapping of historic properties. This grant came about directly as a result of the certified local government designation that you saw earlier. I just need approval for us to sign off on this grant contract.
I hear a motion to approve. All those in favor? Thank you, Janet. Vicki? Parks and Recreation Leisure Service, Vicki Coleman.
Good evening. This is a follow-up. This is the request from the Muni chapter of Omega Psi Phi. They're seeking to use beer and wine at their music festival on August 13th. I know at Thursday's meeting, they made a presentation. I believe the gentlemen are here just to follow up. So you asked staff one last question. I know specifically about their references, so staff has had an opportunity to look into their references and everything checks out. But again, I don't know if you have any additional questions for them. They're certainly here to answer anything that you may have.
All the reports I read coming back from the chief of police and everybody else, it looked like things were in order.
Just so you know, the other night when this came about, all this is new to us with the mill being out there and allowing, private functions to come in there. And we didn't know, and all of a sudden we didn't know if there was going to be 400, 1,400, whatever. And so that's why we just wanted a little bit more time to go back and let our chief of police, because it's his city when it comes to the protection portion of these taxpayers, and we wanted to be certain that our chief of police and at that particular time, Mr. Miller and our city manager were okay with it, and everything I've seen, heard from it was a class group. You all had a great function and raised a lot of money for a great cause, so I don't have any questions at all. Danny, does any council member have any questions?
No, I read everything I received and don't have a concern.
I'm gonna move to approve it.
All those in favor?
Second.
Second. All those in favor? All those opposed? Approved.
Guys, don't look at Miss Marchman as a negative,
I spoke to the gentleman.
any alcohol problem in the city or any alcohol ordinance in the city, she votes no on, so just understand that. It's not against
It's
y'all.
not against you.
It's not against
And,
you.
and when she reads you, do you understand the city conducts random? She'll read it just like I do. Please be aware too that the rules, that there's no bottles out there at that facility. Last Saturday night, there were a couple of bottles that were out there and there shouldn't have been. So it's alcohol's in a can or a plastic container or whatever. We certainly don't want that to get out of hand.
I promised them that I would attend their function.
I'll take a Coke too.
Yeah, Coke.
I'm going to move to the governing body, and first one was council appointments, and first one was Villa Rica Development Authority.
They had been asked to table that to the next meeting.
I have a question. Do we need to table? Why do we need to table?
Because it was a request from the chairman that they needed a little more time.
Okay.
He requested we table it.
On both boards.
Okay, let me just make a comment. Have both boards requested? Because I was told there was just one board that
It's
requested.
DDA
more
and
time.
I spoke with Kurt
VDDA.
Graff myself today,
Okay.
and Kurt had asked, and I spoke with from Jerry Doyle, the president of the Villa Rica the Downtown Development Association, and I think they should be given the right to look at these applications.
Okay.
Myself.
So out
I have
of deference, I just want to, for the record, say that we did put that information out in the middle of May, that application, so they should have been aware of it, but out of respect and deference to them, I'll go along with tabling it.
We're going to have a motion and a second to table the Villa Rica Development Authority. All those in favor? All those opposed? Downtown Development Authority.
Same thing for them. They've requested it be tabled and give them another month to finish up.
All those in favor? All those opposed? Main Street Advisory Board.
Did they ask for more time too?
No, they did not.
Oh, good, we can get one done, huh?
We did have, I know I got one recommendation that came in from Chris Pike. He had said if the council wanted to take action, he would recommend Michael Young.
Move to accept.
I also agree.
All those in favor? All those opposed? Michael Young.
We only needed, that's Main
Carroll
Street.
County Water Authority non-voting board member.
Staff recommendation is Pete Zermanos, Public Works Director for the City of Villa Rica.
I move to accept him.
I have a question. Who is our voting member on that?
We do not have a voting member. Each municipality has a non-voting member.
Second.
All those in favor? All those opposed?
Staff recommendation on the next two is that we delay any action on council at this time.
E and F?
David?
I move to table E
And F.
and F at the same time.
All those in favor? E and F are tabled. Next one is the powers of the Mayor Pro Tem Home Rule Ordinance. Mr. Macklin.
You should have before you a proposed ordinance, as you understand, due to the circumstances of the city with the mayor's resignation. We needed to have some clarification as to what the powers of the mayor pro tem are. They are not spelled out in our current city charter. The only thing the charter says is that the mayor pro tem is to preside over meetings. It doesn't say whatever else they are allowed to do. Section 1.16 of the charter does say that when the charter is silent on a point, that the council has the power to establish powers and functions not provided for by the charter. What we've attempted to do here is to set forth a procedure for setting forth what the powers of the mayor pro tem are. And the succinctly put, it is that the mayor pro tem will, in the absence of a mayor, become an interim mayor and will have all the powers of the mayor except the power of veto. But the interim mayor won't lose the power to exercise their vote for their ward. They will still have the power to make motions and to vote on motions during the meeting. If the interim mayor was to go out of office also through and create another vacancy, then whoever would be appointed as the mayor pro tem after the interim mayor would move up to interim mayor. So that's what this does.
We have to have any kind of hearing on this?
No. We do have to publish a notice of it for it to be a charter amendment. My opinion is it will go into effect tonight if you pass it as an ordinance, but to make it a formal charter amendment, we'll need to vote on it again in the July meeting.
Okay, I'm going to move to approve this ordinance that changes, revises 2.20 in our charter.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
All those in favor? All those opposed?
And with that, I congratulate our new interim mayor. Now we have no mayor pro tem.
Our next is for the call for a special election by our city attorney as well.
Yeah, in regard to that, the methodology for filling vacancies within the mayor's position and the city council position that will become vacant on June 30th would be through a special election. State law sets forth 3 dates within which we can have a special election in an even-numbered year, which this is. One of those was the presidential preference primary back in February. The other one was the May date that we just had several weeks ago. The third one is the November 8 general election. So November 8 is the quickest time we can have a special election to fill those 2 positions. The only other method in Georgia state law to fill a vacancy of this nature is through an appointment by the governor. It's a policy decision on the part of this council, but the thought is that we will be better off by letting the voters decide who they're going to elect to be the mayor and a council person, as opposed to having someone from Atlanta make that decision for us. So the call for the election needs to be approved so it can be submitted to the election superintendent.
So do we want to read any of this in? Because we had given guidance that we had to make sure that we had specified certain things like the qualifying fees, et cetera. So I'm wondering if, for transparency, do we want to read any of this in the record before they make their motion?
Got to be a good idea.
And
At
I
least to
think,
give us a summary of it.
Is our city clerk going to read that in?
yes, the Madam Clerk would love to read that into the record. Do you want a microphone? I'll give you one. Oh, yeah, there you go. No. We'll make this work for you.
Sure.
I'll accommodate you. Here, you just keep on taking it. Just make sure it works.
Hello.
Oh, there you go. Sing a song.
That would not be good. You would kick me
Clean
off.
the house real
Okay,
quick.
call for a special election for the city of Villa Rica. Notice is hereby given that in accordance with the OCGA 21-2-540, a special election shall be held in the city of Villa Rica to fill a vacancy in the office of mayor and a vacancy on the city council, which is Ward 4, due to the resignations of Jay Collins and Mike Williamson. The special election will be held on November 8, 2016, in conjunction with the Georgia general election. Qualifying for the special election shall be held at the office of Carroll County Election Supervisor Greg Rigby at 423 College Street, Lower Lobby, County Administrative Building, Carrollton, Georgia, beginning Tuesday, July the 19th, 2016 at 8:30 a.m. and ending on Friday, July the 22nd, 2016 at 4:30 p.m. Qualifying for the vacancies on the governing authority of Villa Rica is being conducted by the Carroll County Election Supervisor pursuant to an agreement with the Election Supervisor of Douglas County, Georgia, and with the City of Villa Rica. For qualifications of these offices, please contact the Villa Rica City Clerk's office. Qualifying fees will be $90 for the office of mayor and $72 for City Council Ward 4. All persons who are not registered to vote and who desire to vote in the special election may register to vote through the close of business on Monday, October the 11th, 2016. Early voting will be held according to law. For information on times and locations for early voting, please reference the websites of the Board of Elections for either Carroll County or Douglas County listed at, and you've got carrollcountygeorgia.com. There's 323 elections-voter-registration, or celebratedouglascounty.com. The special election for mayor is open to all registered voters in the city limits of the City of Villa Rica. The special election for City Council Ward 4 will be open to all registered voters in the City of Villa Rica residing within Ward 4. Voting will be from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. at all City of Villa Rica voting precincts on Election Day. Should a runoff election be required, such runoff will be held on December 6, 2016. This blank day of 7th day of June 2016. This is submitted by Greg Rigby of the Carroll County, Georgia. He's the Supervisor of Elections, and C. David Methvin, Jr., the City Attorney for the City of Villa Rica.
Having heard that, I'm going to make a motion that we accept the...
Mr. Milliron, Danny, I'm sorry. Mr. Milliron wanted to say something, please. I'm sorry.
I only want to make one clarification and application, and our city attorney can correct me if I were to misspeak here, but the question's come up multiple times. Our city charter calls for a plurality in the vote, so any person that gets the most votes in any one of these races is declared the winner once certified by the supervisor of election, as opposed to 50% plus one. Is that correct in our charter?
It is not. State law requires a majority. So that supersedes any language in our charter to the contrary.
Okay, so it's come up multiple times. So it has to be 50% plus one.
Correct.
In our election in order to be declared a winner.
Correct.
All right, thank you.
And the qualifying fees, you read the qualifying fees as well, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
There were 72 and...
Yeah, $90.72. Okay, I'm sorry, Danny.
That's okay. Now I'll move to approve the call for the special election.
Second, all those in favor? All those opposed? Our next thing will be the selection of Mayor Pro Tem, and I would like to make a nomination of a person I really have admired working with a lot. I respect her. We haven't always raised our hands on the same things. A lot of times there's been four of us, one of her, but I can tell you she stood her belief. I'd like to nominate Ms. Shirley Marchman as the next Mayor Pro Tem.
You don't have to have a second. That's one nomination. Call for any more nominations.
All those in favor of Ms. Marchman? That's a unanimous decision. Ms. Marchman will be the Mayor Pro Tem. Thank you, Ms. Marchman.
And she will become interim mayor on July the 1st.
July the 1st. And with that being said, before we close, this is not on the thing, but Councilperson McPherson wanted to make a comment.
Oh, I need to backtrack just for a moment. Since we did not appoint anybody on the Development Authority, what we need to be aware of is that for the Industrial Authority, they had a retreat planned at the end of this month, but they will be minus 2 of their voting members. So I don't know if they need direction from us. I know we appoint that board, but they should most likely delay that retreat until we make those appointments, because that's what, a third of their voting strength or something will be missing off the board? Is that right?
If it's the will of the council, we certainly will convey that to them. They're their own authority, so I'll certainly convey that if it's the will of the council.
What do you guys
and
think?
Make that as a friendly request.
I can only give my opinion that
I
they
give my
should wait
opinion.
till they get
That's
the new
probably a good
people on.
idea. I think everybody should be there, so they should reschedule.
Okay. We'll notify ASAP.
We
You have executive session, sir.
We are going to make a
Mr. Interim
motion.
Mayor.
Do I make a motion that we go into executive session?
So moved.
Second. All those approved?
And it needs to be for the purpose of discussing the appointment, employment, compensation, hiring, disciplinary action, dismissal, or periodic evaluation or rating of a public officer or employee for the purpose.
What he just said.
Yes, so moved. So moved with our city attorney that in mind.
All right, we'll be in the training room.
Question, after the election on November 8th, is it clear that those elected will take office immediately, or do we have to wait till January?
They're out of session, so as a staff, I will answer that directly. Once the supervisor election has declared or certified, whomever they've declared the winner in either election, unless there's a runoff, will be sworn in post haste.
I concur with that
Based upon
opinion.
temporary.